The man's leg was on backwards. Ah. What's up, y'all? Back on these YouTube streets. Before I get into the video, I want you to like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend because the page is growing. Help me move up the algorithm and get up these YouTube rankings. Now, let's go ahead and discuss Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had one of the most gruesome leg injuries we can remember in recent memory in regards to sports. The last big injury I can remember that was this bad was Sean Livingston. I remember Sean Livingston's injury was terrible. Tyreek Hill, dislocated the knee, multiple ligament damage. He was carted off the field against the Jets. And, there's a lot of speculation about how he left the team and, him laughing or clapping and saying yes and all this other stuff. And everybody's like, well, he's just happy that he's going to get off the Miami Dolphins. Like, he trying to get away from Tua. That team is garbage. Like, it ain't got nothing to do with that. I think that he's just in a state of shock. Sometimes it's also, too, it's like, I'm just happy to still be breathing. I'm still happy to potentially have the opportunity to walk and run again. Like, I may not be playing football right now, but that's the least of the things that I'm worried about right now. You know what I mean? And but if it were to be that situation, let's just play out the scenario. If he was, happy to get out of Miami, Tyreek Hill ain't playing football for at least 2 seasons. The doctor already said that, after successful surgery, he's looking at a timetable of over a year, which means that he may not be ready for 2026 either. So if he's not ready for 2026, then we're possibly have to go gear up for 2027, which means that he's going to be 2 years older, right? So I don't think that that's the situation. But let's just go back to the injury. I'm not a big athlete. I've never been, a professional athlete. But I did have the same type of injury that Tyreek Hill faced. Like, my leg wasn't like that, but I dislocated my knee. I ripped up all the ligaments in my knee. And that was like 7-8 years ago. And it's taken like this amount of time now for me to really start getting comfortable again. But it literally took me 2 years to be able to actually get back on the basketball court. So it took a lot of rehab. I'm talking about rehab for, at least 5-6 days a week, 2+ hours every day to be able to try to get back to a level that you were before. Doctor told me that I'd probably never run again. He was wrong, but, I had to make sure that I put everything that I had in my rehab. So Tyreek Hill is a out of this world superior athlete than I am. So you can imagine, what it's going to take for him to have to get back to the level that he was at. I mean, we're talking about one of the most dynamic wide receivers, dynamic players in NFL history. And that's not hyperbole. Like, that's a fact. When you talk about guys that are first team all pro 5 times, there's only 3 guys on that list. There's Jerry Rice, that got 10. There's Terrell Owens, that got 5. And there's Tyreek Hill, that got 5. When you talk about wide receivers that have 1,700-yard seasons, there's like 12 guys that have done it once. Tyreek Hill is on that list with 2. So again, we're talking about a dude that is a game changer, a game breaker. People still remember the times that he was on Kansas City. I know Kansas City has won Super Bowls after this, but their offense has not looked the same since Tyreek Hill has left, because he was such a dynamic machine, because he can be able to put pressure on your cornerbacks, put pressure on your safeties. You know that home run ball is always going to be there. There's a slant across the middle that can go, it could be a 2-yard slant that can turn into 90 yards just because he had that 4.2 speed. So we're talking about one of the most dynamic wide receivers that we've ever seen. And he's probably been the wide receiver of the decade, since he's gotten to the league. I put him above AB. I think he's better than Antonio Brown. I think he's better than a lot of guys. I think when you compare him to Megatron and the numbers, and like, they're very comparable. So does Tyreek Hill have a future coming back to the NFL. Of course he does. But you got to look at other guys, right? And we're not just talking about injury. We're just talking about attrition. Guys like DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is still playing in the NFL, but he's not the great dynamic receiver that he once was. He can still make plays, but they're not consistent as they used to be. OBJ is not even in football right now. And that was a guy that had, some of the most dynamic special seasons. I think he had the first 3 or 4 years of his career over 100, 1,000 yards, 100 catches or whatever it was, or 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Like, this guy was on the road to being a Hall of Fame great. And his lower leg injuries, the ACL injuries, the ankle problems that he's had, like all of those stuff add up. And it slows you down when you're a guy that's that dynamic. Tyreek Hill is no different. A guy going from a 4.2 to possibly maybe a 4.5. He still has that speed to be effective, to be good. But his superpower was that over-the-top ability. To be able to stretch the defense, to be able to just make any play into a home run play. And if he can't do that anymore, he can be able to still be effective in the NFL. But is he going to be the guy that you always look for him to be? The answer is no. The answer is no. So can we expect Tyreek Hill to be that dynamic guy? All the odds point to no. But that doesn't mean that he still can't be a good receiver. I mean, let me know what you guys think in the comments, man. Like, where does Tyreek Hill rank in regards to the greatest wide receivers we've ever seen? Because for me, I can't put him over Jerry Rice, obviously. I'm not putting him over Randy Moss. I'm not putting him over Terrell Owens. I'm not putting him over Isaac. Yeah, maybe he goes over Isaac Bruce. Marvin Harrison is there's a lot of guys that you can actually have a conversation about. But Tyreek Hill is in that conversation. And we got the off-field stuff, all the other stuff, the baby moms, the kids, all the other things that he gets involved with. But when we talk about the player on the field, the athlete on the field, the dynamic playmaker that he is on the field, there's not many players that have come into this game that has done what Tyreek Hill has done. So I'm hoping that he can be able to get back. It's going to be a long road. Salutes to him. You know what I'm saying? You never want to see a guy go down like that. You never want to see a great player go down like that. But it is the game. And hopefully he can be able to return and, show us flashes or even get back to a certain level and still be able to finish out the career that, he's carved out for himself and finish it on his terms.